What's up, Met fans? Welcome back. Talkin Mets with Rob. How's everybody doing? Before I get started talking about the Mets bench coach, mysterious candidate, don't forget, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit on that like button. If you enjoy my content, want to see more, want to get notified when I post my videos and when I go live, you guys know what to do. Hit on that subscribe button, everybody. All right, guys. So, who is that mystery candidate to be the next bench coach of the New York Mets? Well, Disha Dozar of the Daily News said this. Speaking of the bench coach, the Mets are busy attempting to nail down Showalter's right-hand man for his first season in Queens, and the person with knowledge of the process said it is expected to be an exciting, headline-grabbing hire. The front office is said to be working on a tricky negotiation process with that mystery individual. While much about the bench coach job is still unclear, we can confirm the Mets will not be hiring former short-term manager Carlos Beltran for that role. Two key words in this little paragraph. Tricky negotiation. Now, I have a feeling that a tricky negotiation, in my opinion, possibly means one guy. It's probably not going to be a favorite of a lot of Met fans, but that's who I believe, because it's a tricky negotiation. I think it has to do with somebody who is already getting paid by the New York Mets. We will get to that person in a little bit, but I have a few candidates that I believe that can be the mystery candidate to be the next Mets bench coach, and currently talking and negotiating with the Mets about a contract. The first guy that I'm going to talk about, he pitched for the Mets. He also pitched for the Yankees. He's an analyst right now for the Yankees, and that is none other than David Cohen. Obviously, in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, he was a part of the Mets organization as one of their pitchers. Very good pitcher, obviously. World Series champion. Right now, an analyst for the Yes Network. I think David Cohen is one of the possible options, only because he talked about getting into coaching when you heard him on the Yes Network or anywhere else. He talked about coaching, being a pitching coach. A bench coach seems right. He is a knowledgeable guy about baseball. He's a smart guy. Would not be a bad option for the New York Mets. The only thing about this is that David Cohen possibly is in negotiations with ESPN to be one of the top analysts for Sunday Night Baseball. So that might be a little hurdle that the Mets are talking about when it comes to a tricky negotiation. Maybe they have to up their offer to get him away from the ESPN talks. That's a possibility. Maybe that's the reason of the tricky negotiation. But the first candidate that I am looking at is David Cohen, former New York Met, former pitcher for the New York Mets and for the New York Yankees, Toronto Blue Jays, whatever you want to say about David Cohen. But David Cohen is one of the options that I'm thinking as one of the mystery candidates. The next guy, and he is a fan favorite, another 86 Met that I believe a lot of people wanted to be the manager not too long ago, and that is none other than Wally Backman. Now, I know Wally Backman had problems in the past, with alcohol, with anger issues and going crazy, fighting umpires, and just seems like not a great guy personally, but he is a hard-nosed veteran guy who is somewhat like Showalter in a way, going back to old school mentality. I don't know if the Mets are going to go that route, because there is Sandy Alderson who does not have a good relationship with Wally Backman. But let's be honest, guys. Steve Cohen and Buck Showalter is running this show. Sandy Alderson is on the back burners when it comes to making any type of decision regards to manager, players, and coaches. So when I think about Buck Showalter and I think about Steve Cohen, a longtime Met fan, obviously a big-time fan, watching the Mets in the 80s, winning the World Series in 86, and Buck Showalter, who's an old school guy mentality. I wouldn't be surprised if Wally Backman can be an option, and possibly a tricky negotiation is probably not just talking about money, but also trying to get everybody in the organization on board, including Sandy Alderson, because let's be honest, Wally Backman is a great mind when it comes to baseball. He will get into faces of players and will not have another rat and raccoon situation when Buck Showalter's trying to manage a game. Backman can start talking to the players. The bench coach is very important. And when the managers manage a game during the game, he can't, go over the player every 2 seconds talking to a player after every at-bat, after a bad error or a little bit of controversy in the dugout. That's what they use the bench coach for. And I do think the bench coach and Wally Backman could be an interesting situation. Why? Another reason that 2 words, tricky negotiation, is a part of that paragraph. So Wally Backman is my second mystery candidate that can be the possible bench coach for the New York Mets coming in 2022. The next guy, another fan favorite. We all know him. We respect him. We all love him. He was a big piece of the puzzle in the late 90s, early 2000s with those teams that made the playoffs, got to the World Series, and that is none other than Bobby Valentine. Bobby V is an interesting option. He's very good friends with Buck Showalter, knows him very, very well. That would be a big time headline grabbing hire. Bobby Valentine has been in the news a little bit, has been on the radio, speaking on WFAN, has come on SNY a little bit more lately on the Mets Hot Stove, Baseball Night in New York, all that stuff over the last year or so. And even though he was trying to go for mayor of Connecticut, Bobby Valentine is still a baseball guy. And it doesn't seem like he would get another manager position after the debacle in Boston, but that's a headline grabbing hire right there in Bobby Valentine. It would be a smart hire because obviously Bobby knows baseball. Bobby is good at what he does. He turned a Mets team that, let's be honest, in 2000 had some, besides Piazza, there wasn't a lot of great players on that team. The Agbanis, the Timo Perez, the Todd Zeals. Not a lot of guys that were, all-star caliber players. And he turned that team into a World Series contender and made the World Series. And that's a guy you would want with that mind in the dugout as a bench coach. Him and Buck, that is a dream come true. What Met fans would probably love. We all love Bobby V. It is a possibility that Bobby V wants to come back into baseball. And why not come with the team that he loves in the New York Mets? Coming back to Queens. Maybe with the glasses and the mustache. You never know. But Bobby V is another mystery candidate I'm thinking about. Another thing with the words tricky negotiations is probably trying to get Bobby Valentine away from Sacred Heart, where he is right now coaching also, and running for mayor of Connecticut and all that stuff politically. Maybe that's the reason why the Mets, those I was talking about tricky negotiation process, because let's be honest, he's living a good life, Bobby V, in Connecticut. So a tricky negotiation with Bobby V is probably somewhat warranted, but that is my third mystery candidate, and that is Bobby V. The next guy, and when I heard tricky negotiation, this is the one guy that came to mind right away when it came to tricky negotiations. Why? Because the New York Mets are still paying him. We pay him once a year, every year. We talk about him all the time. And that is none other than Bobby Bonilla. A lot of Mets fans are not going to like this, but let's be honest, guys. Bobby Bonilla was a really good player. Not technically with the Mets, but Steve Cohen in recent years has brought Bobby Bonilla back into the fold a little bit, making him a part of the organization again. And I was thinking as like an ambassador. And then I was thinking, tricky negotiations. Would it be possible to get Bobby Bonilla as the next Mets bench coach? Now, that would be a headline grabbing hire because it would be big time news, because some Mets fans will love it, some Mets fans will absolutely hate it. So when you got those arguments and those opinions on both sides of the spectrum, that is headline grabbing. And tricky negotiations could mean, we do pay Bobby Valentine $1.5 million every year. Why not bring him into the fold in the organization as a bench coach? And, maybe give him a little bit more money, except for that deferred money that he already gets every year for the Mets. until 2035. I think that's the first person that came to mind was Bobby Bonilla when I heard about tricky negotiations. And the reason why it's a headline grabber, because some people will hate it, some people will love it. And that would be very interesting. Bobby Bonilla is not a stupid man. He's a smart man. He's a baseball guy. He played the game. And I think he can have that interest with the players and get in the players' heads. That's what I think. But again, maybe it's a long shot, but when I heard of tricky negotiations, Bobby Bonilla, I just thought of as the guy. And that is the fourth mystery candidate that I think. The next two, for that matter, is probably more of the obvious mystery candidates that everybody loves. Nobody dislikes them. One recently retired. One was one of the best players in Mets history. And this next guy, I think, is probably on top of the list as the candidate, only because he did tweet hashtag Happy New Year, hashtag New York Mets on Instagram. And that is none other than Mike Piazza. I think this is probably more possible, only because I felt like Piazza's been around the team a lot during spring training, during the year, showing up as an ambassador for the Mets. He's been around the organization. He's been around Steve Cohen over the last year and a half. So it's possible. Obviously, Mike Piazza was a great player. One of the best catchers in Mets history. I still think Gary Carter, but Mike Piazza was the man. He brought notoriety to the Mets when he got traded to the Mets in the late 90s from the Marlins. Mike Piazza, we know, is a guy who probably was always itching to get back into the game. And talk about headline grabbing. Mike Piazza would be a headline grabbing hire, no doubt about it. And it will be exciting. Tricky negotiations, maybe. Maybe just to pry him from, living his life in Italy and just enjoying his family. Living his life, basically. So that could be a part of the tricky negotiations, but that would definitely be a headline grabbing news. And Mike Piazza is the man, and I think everybody would be excited. Every Met fan would be excited about that. Get a huge ovation on opening day. So Mike Piazza is the next candidate that I think that possibly, most likely, could be the candidate to be the next Mets coach. Last but not least, guys, recently retired, beloved Met. Unfortunately, couldn't end his career the way he wanted to, and that is none other than David Wright. That is another guy that I think is another likely candidate and probably a big possibility as well, only because, David Wright's young, right? You can see him being the heir apparent of Buck Showalter and being a manager in a couple of years, learned behind Buck Showalter. Obviously, baseball is in his blood, David Wright. I think he would be a great manager. I think he gets along with all the players. He's not too far in age from a lot of the players, so he can relate to them. And everybody respects David Wright. And that would be an excellent hire. It makes so much sense. Can David Wright get back into baseball? He does have a young family with 3 kids, young kids. Does he want to leave them and, go through the grind of the baseball season as a bench coach? I don't know. But maybe that's the reason why tricky negotiations are in that process, because, to pry him away from his family for a couple of months through the grind of the baseball season might not be as easy with a young family. But David Wright would be an excellent option. Talk about an ovation that David Wright would get on opening day. He would get the biggest ovation out of anybody. And as we know, over the last couple of years, Jacob deGrom gets the biggest ovation out of any Met. But David Wright will get the biggest ovation that day on opening day. So, David Wright and Mike Piazza, I think, are the 2 guys that are most likely the possible candidate to be the next Mets bench coach. But I think Bobby Bonilla is that mystery candidate that is the headline grabbing hire, because on both ends of the spectrum, people hate it, people would like it, because the tricky negotiations is, he's already getting paid to stay home, so that might be a tricky negotiation. But I think Bobby Valentine, but there is no doubt, guys, that each one of these candidates could be a possibility to be the next bench coach of the New York Mets. All of these guys can be very possible. And why the hell not, right? You got Buck Showalter as manager. Let them learn under him. And I think that one of these guys are one of the candidates to be the next bench coach of the New York Mets. Once again, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit on that like button if you enjoy my content. Want to see more, want to get notified when I post my videos, and when I go live, you guys know what to do. Hit on that subscribe button, everybody. Let me know in the comments, who do you think is that mystery candidate that would be a headline-grabbing hire? Let me know in the comments, guys. Appreciate all the support, guys, and as always, Met fans, let's go Mets.